This is Tyler from Mayflower Electronics. I've got John here. He's our main solder technician. You guys have been emailing a lot and asking how to put the quarter-inch jack on, the ODAC, the RCA's, rear power, all that kind of stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a blank board. John's going to walk you through how to put everything together from start to finish. So take it away, John.
Okay. Alright, well here's our blank board. These are the parts that are going to be in the way for your quarter-inch, which you see I've already taking everything out where it needs to be. Basically, your C8, C9 are going to be put here where C17 and 18 are. They're just swapping places. They're the same. They share the same traces. So these two will go on the back. Our 11's in the way. That'll go on the back. And the two big capacitors are too big to go on the back, so that's why they moved down. So that's already done here, but that's what you would do, and they go polarity wise, it's the same. They would just drop down and go in there, then be bent over to get out of the way. So you got to prepare your quarter-inch jack, which you just bend these all off with little tabs, because you need every bit of space you can get. Break the tabs off, snip these little plastic knobs off. Then that's ready. That'll fit in there. It'll fit in there nice. And I go ahead and solder those legs ahead of time. Okay, so that's ready. And what you would want for wires, usually the kits come with these little wires, but for that, for the quarter-inch jack, I just use Cat 5 wire. See, it's about the length of the board. And just trim off a little bit front and back. It's 22 gauge. I usually snip one side short, one side longer. The longer side is going to go into the board. I snip it short on this side because once you add heat, that insulation is going to melt backwards, so I leave it short on one end. Get that done. Okay, so there's my three. Then what I'm going to do is hold it down so you can see it. That's right, left, and these two are ground. So I put them in, you can't see, but right where the insulation stops, I just barely poke that in the hole so that once I put the heat on it, I don't want that melting back so that two of these would short together. So I try to put a little of the insulation into the hole. And that nice little gap between the big capacitors holds my wires in place for me. Then the ground, I use the most forward hole just to spread the wires out a little bit. See, now I'm holding them there. I turn it over and everything's held nice for me to solder. You don't want to keep the heat on there too long because it does melt that insulation back. So it's long enough to tin the copper and then to get, and just trim them off. Okay, so there, the wires are set for that. What I do is pull them up back out of here. I'll spread them apart a little bit. That's my right, that's my left, that's my ground. Then on your quarter-inch jack, if you turn it, you see you got a flat end, the hole pointing out. If you're holding it like that, here's your ground. left, then right, and that's how I solder them. Same thing again, you're going to tin the wires. And then you just solder them on. It's ground, roll it over once. Try and get your wires, it'll stay close. You don't want them moving after you apply the heat. And that is right. Now where they come in here, you try to grab these 3 wires, just bend them in that general direction. Just as an added precaution, we always put a piece of tape across the board, right where this is going to meet the board. You see there's traces that it could short out to if you were to put too much solder on. And you bring this around, right is to the bottom. You hold the wires, you bring that up. You know, you should, it'll look almost like the letter E when you're done, because you're going to twist. And there, you see it's like the letter E. Because you have to pull this out to get it onto your panel when you're done. So that's a 1/4 inch jack. You're done with him. Now we go to the ODAC. With the ODAC, you only need 1 battery post. Let me just get that on there. If you tilt the board like that, they'll stand by themselves. Makes it easier to solder. There. Okay, so he's in place. And if you can, you should be grounded once you take your ODAC out of the bag. If not, you should at least touch your soldering iron where the metal's showing where that's grounded. I've got a grounding strap on my ankle, but I won't go that far to show you, but I am grounded. Take that out. Notice I'm not trying to touch anything on the board. This will go in like that. That's what the post is for, to stop it from that direction. But before we do that, I'll put the wires in. Same thing. They go in on this side. It's left, ground, and right. And what I do so that they don't get in the way of this plug right here, I tilt all 3 of these back, hold them in place, then roll the board over. And then that's it, ready to solder. Okay. Alright, so that's ready to go. I turn the board upside down. You'll see the ODAC is marked left and right, then the last 2 are ground. So here's my left, bring that forward. The middle is the ground. I get right out of the way, bring the ground without touching anything on the board, then right to right. Then bring the left back in, left goes to left. Flip the board over and hold it down. That should hold everything in place. Then you probably want your heat turned up a little for the ground, because it's got this big ground plane. It's going to take a bit more heat to get your solder to stick. So usually hold it there for a little while, start in the corner and work your way around the whole board to make sure you've got a good ground connection. And that's good. These ones don't take as much, they don't have as big a ground plane or solder plane to solder to. And again, you're not touching the board and clipping your legs off. Put them out of the way. And that was set. Normally I would have which I forgot the nylon bolt and the 2 nuts. I would have already had those on here. Okay. And the other nut goes on. Now if I hold that, these will tighten themselves on. So the bottom nut is tight. Let's see, the top one isn't tight yet. I'll just come in there and tighten that top nut. And there you go, there's the ODAC set in there. Bend the legs over a little, that's set to go. The 1/4 inch is set. Then we have to do, we can slide that away a little bit and we'll prepare our RCAs. Start with that. These are always one of the least fun tasks to do. Okay, you see that both of these ground lugs are close enough to each other. And okay, for the RCAs, we're going to have 2 long wires, which would be for the left and right, and the short wire for the ground. The ground goes right here. It's going to be soldered to both sides. And a lot of times it's a pain to solder these because it just takes a lot of heat. And patience to get it on. There we go. You have to bend him down so he's that direction. He soldered to the 2 ground lugs. Now you want to fill these troughs with solder. Which I can use a counter for that. Normally I'd have the fan on to keep all the smoke out of my eyes, but things I do for the video. Okay, so the troughs are filled. Same thing with these, I'll just trim the tips. Okay. My hands will probably be in the way. And the red. Okay, so those get bent over. You see how long they are, which we need some excess wire. Snip the ends. Then these will get cut to length onto the board. So that's for your RCA plug. Your power goes in after, or else it's really hard to do. If you put this in first, it's going to be in the way of everything. It's better to save it till last. And we had a disagreeable nut on there. Try another one. As always, any other time they'd go on nice. Okay. So there's your 2 power wires. Get soldered in place, and you do want to snip your excess, because when you put them on the boards, that's going to be in the way, so that's why you snip your excess. Okay, so we're set with that. First you would put your Okay, this is John again. I didn't realize that the camera stopped. I believe I was right at the power jacks, which there's no polarity since it's AC. And I just soldered those in. Just stick them in the hole, fill the hole with solder. Real easy, they'll stay. So then your next part, you're lining up here. Here's your ground to both RCAs. I don't know if you can see, I'm going right into the lower hole. From the back side you'll see it better. That's also a ground, so that's where it's an empty hole that I can use. Solder it in. Now our ground is taken care of. Now here's our right and left. I always like to color code: red right, lemon left. And he's going to go through here. And here's my right. And the left is going to go over here for left. Just wanted to show you that. So I line up my board, holding that in place. Here's right, pull it all the way through. You don't want any excess wire. And the left gets pulled all the way through. So now I lay it down, and then this is where you just snip off your excess wire. So now I turn it up. I'm going to pull those wires through to give me more room to work. Hopefully you have a fingernail that can strip the wire. If not, you'll have to strip it with a knife or strippers. These strip pretty easy. And again, we're going to tin all the wires. Makes everything easy. Okay, wires are tinned. I put a little extra solder on the right and on the left. Clean that off. I don't need much of the tinned wire, so I snip off the ends, plus they may be frayed. Then I just hold the wire in place. Nice. There's a little pocket behind here. If you heat it up, it just drops right in there. Pull your wires back out, end them in there. There's your RCA plugs. So you see there's a jumble of wires in here. Let's see. Ground lugs. Anytime we have an ODAC, we like to ground the board. Let's see if this one has it. Yes. See where we scrape the paint off so that you have a ground lug. Just take a piece of wire. Just use bare wire, around 24 gauge. Same thing, tin the tip, or tin the end of that, put extra solder there. Now you see I've got the loop so I don't have to hold close. And it's as simple as that for your piece. Leave about an inch excess, bend that out of the way. So now we've got everything together ready to slide into the board, but first we'll pull this out of the way, just so he's right about there. And then everything should slide in the board. You've got a bunch of wires that need to be down there. I would screw the back on, but for right now we're just showing you how. This is odd because I'm right-handed, I want to go this way. But what you would do is, here's your hole, you've already got this out. You're just putting that here, you're putting the cap on, you'll hear it click. I gotta put my hands behind to hold it because it's pretty hard to click if you have a, what was this? 12mm socket, that's the right size. And that little quarter turn. And you see, you try to line that so it's straight up and down. You can push these wires back a little so they're out of the way when you put it in the board. And that's it. There's your 1/4 inch. Your ground lug is on there. I didn't show that, but you would bring this around. Now everything's in the way. And you would just cut it. Then your wire goes around that. So there you'd have it. You've got your ODAC, RCAs, rear power, and 1/4 inch jack.